Come on in out of the cold, friends. Pull your chair a little closer to the fire today. I've got an extra log on the grate because today is a very special occasion in American history. If you look at a calendar, it just says January 8th. But for anyone who loves rock and roll, today is a holiday. Today, we are wishing a huge happy birthday to the man from Memphis, the one they simply call the King, Mr. Elvis Aaron Presley. Now, when people think of Elvis today, they often see the end of the story first. They see the big white jumpsuits covered in rhinestones in Las Vegas. They see the sideburns and the karate kicks on stage. But today, for his birthday, I don't want to talk about the icon. I want to talk about the human being. I want to go back to a time before the world knew his name, back to when America in the 1950s was a much quieter, more conservative place, living largely in black and white, and how this one incredibly shy young man, almost by accident, brought a jolt of technicolor electricity that changed everything. It's a story about talent, yes, but it's also a story about destiny, and how sometimes the biggest things start in the smallest ways. You see, Elvis wasn't born into royalty. Far from it. He came into this world in 1935 in Tupelo, Mississippi, right in the middle of the Great Depression. His start was incredibly humble. He was born in a tiny two-room shotgun shack that his father Vernon built himself. Times were hard, money was scarce, and to make things harder, Elvis's twin brother Jesse was born stillborn. This tragedy created an unbreakable bond between Elvis and his mother Gladys. They were incredibly close. He was the center of her world, and she was the center of his. Growing up, Elvis wasn't the cool kid in school. In fact, folks who knew him then remember him as painfully shy. He was a bit of an outsider. He didn't have many friends, and he would often bring his guitar to school and play gospel songs during lunch break, hidden away in a corner. And speaking of guitars, there is a wonderful true story about his 11th birthday. Young Elvis had his heart set on a rifle, a .22 caliber rifle. That's what many young boys in the rural South wanted back then. His mother, Gladys, who was always very protective of him, absolutely hated the idea. She didn't want him around guns. So they went down to the Tupelo Hardware Company. Elvis was eyeing the rifle, but the shopkeeper, a man named Forrest Bobo, saw Gladys's hesitation. He handed Elvis a guitar instead. It cost $12.95. Elvis was disappointed at first, but his mother convinced him that $12.95 investment was the spark that eventually lit the whole world on fire. It just goes to show you, sometimes not getting what you want is the best thing that can happen to you. When Elvis was 13, the family moved to Memphis, Tennessee, looking for a better life. Memphis was a melting pot. It was a city filled with the sounds of the blues coming from Beale Street, country music on the radio, and powerful gospel sounds in church every Sunday. Elvis soaked it all up like a sponge. By the time he graduated high school in 1953, he was different. He wore his hair long and greased back, and he bought flashy, bright pink and black clothes from a store on Beale Street. He didn't look like the other boys in crew cuts and gray flannel suits. He was driving a truck for the Crown Electric Company, but he knew he was meant for something else. And that brings us to the most important day in rock and roll history. July 1954, a hot summer day in Memphis. There was a small recording studio called Sun Studio, run by a man named Sam Phillips. Sam was looking for something new. He famously said, "If I could find a white man who had the Negro sound and the Negro feel, I could make $1 billion." You have to remember, in the 1950s, in the American South, everything was segregated. Schools, buses, restaurants, and music. There was white music, country and pop, and race music, rhythm and blues. The two were not supposed to mix. Elvis walked into Sun's studio to audition for Sam Phillips. Sam put him together with two local musicians, Scotty Moore on guitar and Bill Black on bass. They spent hours trying to record. It wasn't going well. Elvis was nervous. They were trying to record slow, sappy ballads because that's what popular singers like Dean Martin did. But it just sounded boring. Sam Phillips was ready to give up and send the kid home. They took a break. The tape machines were off. Sam was in the control booth, probably rubbing his eyes. And then it happened. Elvis, just letting off steam, started acting goofy. He grabbed his guitar and started furiously playing an old blues song called Quote 5, originally by Arthur Crudup. But he played it fast. He was jumping around the studio, shaking his leg nervously as he played. Scotty and Bill, seeing him having fun, jumped in and started playing along. Suddenly, the door to the control booth flew open. Sam Phillips poked his head out. He looked shocked. He yelled, "Quote 6. They stopped playing. "Quote 7, they said. Sam yelled back, "Cal, quote, I." He hit the record button. That was it. That was the moment. It wasn't planned. It was pure instinct. It was blues, speeded up with a country beat, sung by a white kid with a voice that soared and growled at the same time. When Sam Phillips took that record to a local radio DJ, Dewey Phillips, he played it on the air. The phone lines at the station melted down. Kids were calling in asking, "Who is that?" They had never heard anything like it. It was dangerous. It was exciting. It was sexy. It was rock and roll. Almost overnight, Elvis became a sensation, but he also became a controversy. Parents hated him. Preachers called his music the devil's work. They tried to ban his concerts. Why? Because of the way he moved. Remember, he was shy. When he got on stage, his nerves made his legs shake uncontrollably. To cover it up, he started moving his hips in time with the music. The girls in the audience went absolutely wild. They screamed so loud you couldn't even hear the music. America in the 1950s didn't know what to do with this kind of raw energy. They tried to film him only from the waist up on television so they wouldn't corrupt the youth. Elvis was a revolutionary, but he was a polite Southern gentleman revolutionary. He always said, "Yes, sir," and "No, ma'am." That contrast, the wild performer on stage and the polite mama's boy off stage, was part of his magic. But just as he was becoming the biggest star on the planet, Uncle Sam came calling. In 1958, at the absolute height of his fame, Elvis was drafted into the U.S. Army. Now, here is a fact that tells you a lot about his character. The Army offered him a sweet deal. They said he could join the Special Services. Basically, his job would be to travel around to bases, play concerts for the troops, and live in luxury. It would be easy PR for the Army. Elvis said no. He said he wanted to be treated like every other American boy. He wanted to be a regular soldier. He took the famous haircut, the haircut heard round the world, where they shaved off his famous pompadour. He went through basic training. He scrubbed floors. He did KP duty, kitchen patrol, peeling potatoes. He was shipped off to Germany, where he served as a jeep driver and eventually earned the rank of sergeant. The other soldiers respected him because he asked for no special favors. But while he was away serving his country, tragedy struck. His beloved mother Gladys became ill and died. Elvis was devastated. It broke his heart in a way that perhaps never fully healed. When Elvis came back from the Army in 1960, the music world had changed. The Beatles were rising. Elvis spent most of the 60s making silly movies in Hollywood. By 1968, many people thought Elvis was washed up, finished. But Elvis had one more great surprise left. For his birthday today, I want you to go online and watch clips of the 1968 comeback special. Elvis walked onto a small square stage, dressed head to toe in black leather. He looked dangerous again. He looked like a panther. He sat down with his old friends, Scotty Moore and DJ Fontana, and they just played rock and roll. It was raw. It was powerful. He was sweaty. He was laughing, and his voice was better than ever. It was a reminder to the whole world. He was saying, "I invented this, and I'm still the king." It remains one of the greatest performances in television history. Elvis left us too soon, way back in 1977. The end of his story is sad, and we all know it. But today, on his birthday, we celebrate the light he brought. Elvis proved that a poor kid from nowhere with a $12 guitar could change the world if he had enough soul. He broke down barriers between black and white music that no politician could budge. He opened the door for the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and everyone who came after. As John Lennon once said, "Before Elvis, there was nothing." Happy birthday, Elvis. Thank you for the music. Let's see how well you were listening to Old Pop Pop today. It's time for your Brain Prime quiz. What did Elvis want for his 11th birthday instead of a guitar? A rifle. What was the name of the studio where Elvis recorded his breakthrough hit? Sun Studio. How did Elvis serve in the U.S. Army during the draft? As a regular soldier. Well done, my friends. The fire is burning low here, and it's time for me to put on an old Elvis record and just listen. I want you to help me celebrate today. Head down to the comments section and tell me, what is the one Elvis song you can listen to over and over again? Let's fill this comment section with rock and roll memories today. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Until our next story, bye now.